Hi, everybody. We are live. This is Arsenal Fan Circle, uh, part three of the trilogy, the weekend trilogy that I came up with. And the third installment is usually the happy ending. But we're going to talk about Arsenal in the 21st century, the last 20 years of Arsenal. We're going to go through some highs and some lows. And with me, I have today Richard from Arsenal TV. How
Evening,
are you?
Ray. Evening, Glenn. And thank you for inviting me onto the channel, Ray, as always.
No problem. Shout out your channel for a second there.
Yeah, my channel is Arsenal TV. If you can't find it, then I will leave the link in the description, in the comments box after we come off air.
Yeah, and I will definitely do that for you, Richard. Getting close to 1,000, so help Richard get there. He's mid 800s right now, so
Yeah, I'm at 847.
let's
Still.
push him up there, guys. And Glenn, all the way from Sudan, shout out yourself and your channel, Glenn.
Sudan? Wow. Kenya, actually.
Kenya, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Oh my God. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me again. Hopefully, the second of many more times to be on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Kenya, I'll remember that. I only make
Yeah.
mistakes once.
Yeah, sure.
Uh, so we possibly will be having a few more people dropping in, but 20 years of Arsenal, Richard, just give us a quick synopsis of 20 years before we get down to the nitty gritty.
Jesus Christ.
What does
Well,
that last 20 years mean to you?
I don't know. There's been ups, there's been downs, there's been players leaving, there's been players coming in. There's been some trophies along the way. There's been 9 years without a trophy.
Yeah,
Um, it's just been an up and down sort of 20 years, really. I think the best part of 20 years, I would say, probably be the 2003 and 4 season when Arsenal went invincible.
yeah,
I think that's the highlight of the whole 20 years for me.
yeah. Glenn,
Yeah.
just really quickly, 1 minute on the 1 minute on 20 years.
Obviously, as Richard said, obviously the unbeaten season in 2003, 2004, but also the 2004, 2005, 2006 when we got to the Champions League final.
Yeah,
Unfortunate not to win that.
Yeah,
Also, there was a season, I think it was 2008. We were second for best part of the season, almost won the title. So all those are highlights for the century.
yeah. We're gonna go through for me 20 years, lots of highs in the first 4 or 5 years, and then a lot of nearly something happening. And as Richard said, 9 years of something that didn't happen forever, 9 years. And then we, like it or not, we picked up three cups in the middle of the last decade. So for me, cups are cups, and that's something to be highlighted as well. But
yeah.
let's get started on 1999, the season 1999 to 2000. That was the season where we did come second to Manchester United, a number of points behind them. And this was, Richard, you might remember some epic conflicts between Alex Ferguson and Arsene Wenger.
Yeah, I remember. Well, in that season, I think my first game was when we played against Chelsea and we won 3-2. That same year, we just signed Canu, and he came off from the bench because he was originally on the bench for that game, and we was 2-0 down, and came on for a bit off the bench from in the second half, and we managed to pull out a 3-2 win, and he scored a hat trick on his first debut. So that's what I remember mostly about that year. Um, but yeah, I mean, for us to be second place and competing against Man United, I think the Tottenham and Arsenal rivalry back then, the main rivalry was Arsenal and Man United because we was both competing for titles every season. But we all know that Tottenham's our biggest rival anyway. But yeah, the amount of games that we've had against Man United is just unbelievable.
And Glenn, any comments on that season, or we can fill that in for you? A little bit early yet.
A little bit early, but I do Kano game. Really, really epic. I think that was when we started now having good battles against Chelsea here and there. So That's
Yeah.
basically all I remember from 99.
Yeah. Kanu, a hugely underrated Arsenal player. A lot of people underrated Kanu, but he was a special talent, Glenn.
I'm one of those people who really think Kanu could make a top 10 for Arsenal players. I don't really think so. But yeah, a few good goals here and there. But underrated, I'd also underrate him myself.
Now, of course, at that point in the Champions League, we were struggling to even get out of the group stages.
Group
So we did
stages. Yeah.
we did fail to get out of the group stages. Arsene Wenger had been with the team for four seasons. Obviously, huge success winning the league in 1998. We'll remember that one. 12 games in a row to surge past United, and that rivalry would continue with Manchester United into the early 2000s. And as Glenn has mentioned, Chelsea were starting to come to the fore as well, Richard.
Yeah, they were. They was winning trophies here and there as well. They were slowly catching up with the likes of us and Man United, and I would say Chelsea have been quite good ever since, really. But with
Mm-hmm.
them having a change of management and everything, they're not the same as they used to be.
Yeah. So really, that year then fueled the what would happen next year. So again, the year 2000, 2001, second to Manchester United again. In the FA Cup, we lost 2-1 to Liverpool. A lot of us remember that Michael Owen goal
No, oh God.
in the dying
That's the same
seconds.
season they won the treble.
Say that, Glenn, again.
Same season they won the treble.
Yeah,
That would be, I think, was 1999 to 2000 was the year that they won the treble.
yeah.
No, I'm Liverpool.
Liverpool.
Liverpool won the FA Cup, the Carling Cup, and I think it was one of the European Cups. They won three.
Yeah,
I think it was
it would have been maybe because we know they didn't win the league, right, Richard?
Yeah, definitely.
And
I think they beat us.
I mean, we're friends of Liverpool at this point. They're not our direct rivals, so I would say good luck to them this year. Enjoy winning that league. We know what it's like. We're gonna talk about that invincible year. We're getting very very close to it now. But 2001, we lost to Liverpool. Quarterfinals of the Champions League for the first time since 1972. So Richard and Glenn, Richard, we're making progress in the Champions League.
Yeah, because the recent years we finally got out of the group stages where we were struggling a lot. And it was nice to get further into the Champions League. And then obviously nearer the time when it got to 2006, we managed to get to a final. So it was still a work in progress for us to get out of the group stages.
And Glenn, what we would see is this is a precursor to Arsene Wenger, always getting into the Champions League but never quite progressing. And we're going to look at all of those Champions League years. As I was doing my notes for this show, a huge amount of Barcelona, Bayern Munich, in particular, who sort of flummoxed us in the quarterfinal stages, Glenn.
And that would be a shock for me. I really don't know why we didn't really get to the finals and semifinals. That was like almost our best team those days. The likes of Anelkas, Vieiras, Henry's. I wonder why we didn't get far.
Yeah, Richard, that's a good point that Glenn made. It's some way very much disappointing that this Arsenal team that became invincibles a year later um, didn't really do so much in Europe.
I don't know. That always baffles me. When we got to the semi-finals and we won that, I was thinking, here we go. This could be it. If there was one squad that can go and win a Champions League or a European title, it's this one. Um, and then when we came down to playing against Barcelona in the final, I was like, oh my God, this is not the team that I wanted in the final. But I think in that game against Barcelona, we came out quite good in that Champions League final. Came out quite well. But the second half, we just gave them too much space.
Yeah,
Messi literally just tore us apart.
yeah.
And our back line just could not cope with him.
Well, we'll get to that. Let's talk about 2002, a good year for Gooners. Our rivalry of Manchester United continues. We win the league in 2002 at Old Trafford with Sylvain Wiltord scoring that goal. That goal
Yeah,
that we'll all remember. Um,
yeah,
I mean, we were very much superior that year. We went on to win the double, beating Chelsea 2-0 in the FA Cup final. So domestic double for Arsene Wenger in 2002.
yeah. I actually thought that was quite a good season. That was quite a good season for us, and I actually thought we was actually going in the right direction at that point.
Yeah. Glenn, any memories from that? John Terry, was that the one that John Terry ends up on his backside in the FA Cup final? Freddie Lundberg curls that ball into the top right hand corner.
That was it. Yeah,
Exactly what I was about to say. I remember Ljungberg scoring in that game. I think Repala scored or something, if I'm not
Yes,
wrong, in
Ray
that game.
Parler scored that curler. Um,
Any idea? Any idea how many games we lost in that season in the Premier League?
2002, Richard.
That would be interesting.
Let's say 3 games.
I
That
don't
would be
know off the
interesting.
top of my head roughly how many games we lost.
Uh-huh.
Anyone in the
But,
comments
but
section may know that.
winning the title at Old Trafford is definitely a memory. That is one thing we really hold on to right now. Winning the title at Old Trafford, at White Hart Lane, that's one of the few things we can hold on to right now alongside the unbeaten season.
Yeah, and of
Yeah.
course, every Arsenal fan knows that this podcast, the first 10 or 15 minutes, is going to be the good stuff, and then later years will get not so good. 2003, then 2002, 2003. We come second to Manchester United. They come back and take the title from us. I remember defeat against Leeds, Richard, at home.
I think I just about remember it. If I remember rightly, did
Or
we
was
not
it
lose?
It was the Leeds away from home with Hasselbank scoring that goal. Arsene
That's
Wenger
the one.
kicking the bottle of water on the sideline. The league was
Yeah,
lost
I
at that
can't
point.
remember what the scoreline was. I think it was it 2-1?
2-1 maybe. I was thinking 1-0 right off the bat. But
Yeah, I know it's something like that we lost.
Glenn, we do salvage something from the season. We do win the FA Cup and retain it versus Southampton. Robert Perez, a goal, 1-0. FA
Yeah,
Cup.
I do remember. Yeah, I do remember that. Winning the FA Cup has always been something for us too. The Premier League that season, I don't really remember, but from the very next season, I can't wait to get to that.
We're getting to the next season. I do want to
Yeah.
say, and we do exit to Valencia in the Champions League. Precursor to things that would happen. Amazing consistency for Arsene Wenger to reach the Champions League every year through top four. Which Richard, top four, he Arsene Wenger used to say it was a trophy in of itself. And could we say that now?
No, not really. If you want to become the best team in the league, you got to go and win the prizes. You got to go and win the Premier League. You got to go and win the European trophies to be the best. And for me, at a point, getting top four, yes, it gave us the the validation to get into the Champions League, and we didn't have to qualify every season. But even now, I don't want top four. I want the Premiership. That's how I feel that this club should be going.
We should be heading
going.
back
We
in that
should be
direction.
going to the. Yeah, we should be going in that direction to be
Yeah.
competing for the league title, to be competing, getting to a Champions League final, getting to European finals. That's the aim we should be going.
Before we get into the invincible season, just take a few comments. Leaving Highbury might have been a mistake.
Yeah, I still feel that we should have stayed there. To be honest, it's like as if that we left our. It's like as if we left our soul there, but never took that Highbury soul with us to Emirates. It was more or less we left it there and built a new soul at Emirates.
And Glenn, I remember when Arsene Wenger said, I think it was the first game at the Emirates or first season, that we had to build memories there in order to feel more comfortable in our environment.
Yeah,
But
I guess at that time we needed something like a bigger stadium that had become a thing.
yeah,
But I think leaving Highbury definitely was a bad decision. We had so many good memories at Highbury. comebacks, trophies, and it hasn't worked out at the Emirates so far. So bad decision, definitely.
Yeah. And let's just dwell on that for a second, Richard. We moved to the Emirates many years before Spurs made that move. Um,
Yep.
but I was watching the same old Arsenal podcast, so shout out to them. I want to give them credit for the information I'm going to divulge now. Is that we have not paid off the Emirates still at this point in time. I did not know that. I was not aware of that. But we've got 19 more years of payments to make on the Emirates before we actually own the ground.
Do you know what? Funny enough, I didn't actually know that either. I actually thought that the stadium was already paid off. So that's bang news to me. I didn't even know we were still
I,
paying it off, and maybe that's a reason why we're struggling still,
yeah.
or we
Anyone
have been struggling.
anyone watching right now that is interested in that kind of stuff, I would ask them to check out same old Arsenal podcast. Very interesting stuff in
Yeah,
terms
man.
of Cronky and all that stuff. And
Where
the
did all the money
stadium.
go?
That is something they also talk about, Glenn. And yeah, it's a real issue. You know,
That's an
what
interesting one.
would Henry have stayed if he won the Champions League in 2006 and brought a better start to the Emirates? I think he may have stayed at that point.
Um, yeah, I think he probably might have stayed if we did win the Champions League that season. Um, but I think we might have lost. We might have already lost him
Yeah,
because he wanted to go and win. Like he wanted to go and win other trophies. Like he wanted to
and
go,
I
win the
remember,
bigger ones.
and we'll get into it, but I remember at the time that Henry was almost the big fish in a small pond. He was definitely becoming very irritated at the service he was getting from a lot
Yeah.
of younger players, particularly young Cesc Fabregas at the time. That's a few years on forward. So Glenn, we're here. It's 2003, 2004, the invincible season, Glenn.
The best season, obviously, at Arsenal. That is the first time I started watching the games. Um, what can I say about that season? I remember the game against Liverpool where we made a comeback and won. I think it was 4-2. Henry got the hat trick. I also remember the goal against Tottenham where he ran past so many people and scored. Um, yes, we did draw 12 games that season, but definitely the mentality in that team at that time was really good. And that's why I keep on saying I don't really know why they didn't get far in the Champions League. High hopes.
Thanks for having me on.
Hi, Hobbs. Welcome in. Thanks for
I'm not
joining.
here. The disclaimer: I'm just here to support for a while, or just to come on and talk for a while.
Oh,
I'm-
your timing is perfect. You got to the best year of these 20, the invincible year.
Oh, that was good. That was lucky.
But what
Yeah.
I do remember in that Invincible season, there's games in there that we could have easily lost. But it was the mentality of the players that said, you know what? No, we're not going to give up. We're going to go full throttle and give it to them. I
We're
can
not gonna
remember
lay
one of the
down.
games. I remember one of the games that we was losing at half time, and in my mind, I was thinking, great, now someone stopped us. But then it was the way the players came out the second half was just the determination was unbelievable, and these players were fighters.
Hopes, your high points from that season,
The
or
Invincibles.
any takeaways from the Golden Trophy season, and the
The
Predators
Invinci-
with you again.
The Invisible season was. Yeah, I've got a bone to pick with Tina, but I'll come to that. So yeah, no, the actual the actual Invincible season was formidable. You know, it was just like Richard said. You know, how long are we going to keep this up for, and are we going to get beaten? But then we'd come out, turn it around in the second half. I think it was just a bit like like Man United and Liverpool are now. That sense of belief. Um, we the game's not over until that final whistle. It was just a whole different kind of atmosphere and a different vibe, and you know, because we were winning left, right, and centre, and we'd won trophies. So the confidence was there, unlike at the moment, you know.
And unfortunately, hopes we're going to be hit with pretty soon as Liverpool do this thing. We're going to be hit with, oh, but Arsenal drew so many games. It's still an achievement, right, Richard?
Well, to be honest, yes, we haven't lost in 2020, and we haven't really lost no games under Mikel Arteta at the moment.
Yeah.
I sort of feel like at the moment it's more or less like a honeymoon period. At the moment, that's how I feel. I think we will lose games under Mikel Arteta, but it's how we bounce back from them.
Yeah.
And the mentality of the players. How are they going to respond? We've seen it under Unai Emery. We lost games, and the players didn't respond as they should have done. But at the moment, I think we will. I think we will start seeing results. I think we will, but we just need to give it time. Remember, Mikel Arteta hasn't had a full season yet.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't had a
And
full
in that
season.
season, sorry. And in that season for 2003, 2004, there's a huge difference between drawing games that you should win and drawing
Yeah.
games that you should have lost. That game, I thought that season we should have lost so many games that we drew, like Portsmouth away.
Yeah. Glenn, let me ask you this: what players from this current team, if any, would make it into that invincible squad? Let's say squad.
You would try and make a case for Aubameyang, but you had Henry and Beckham, so that is a no. You would try and make a case for Aubameyang on the left, but we had Pires, so I don't really think anyone. That spine of that team was really, really good. You try and make a case for Leno, but also that our keeper those days way much
Yeah.
better. So none.
Yeah. We had another German goalkeeper there, Richard. Would take the same question, Richard? Would any Arsenal players make it even into the squad?
Yeah, I would probably say about two players that probably would, and my two would be Lucas Torreira. I think he would definitely get into the invincible squad.
Right.
And
shout.
I think that Aubameyang probably would get into the invincible squad
Yeah.
as well.
He would probably be a strength player, a squad depth player at that point. You know. Hopes, would you have any of the? Go ahead, Glenn.
Aubameyang for who, Richard?
For who, Richard?
Well, if Henry let's just say if Henry got potentially injured, you would need the backup to come in, and I think Aubameyang would have been the right player to bring on to go alongside Bergkamp if that circumstance happened.
Yeah. Hopes, would you have any of this current team in that invincible side? Be generous.
Yeah, well, I am, and I'm gonna be somewhat controversial as well. I'm not sure they'd make it in the any of the current players would be first team players. There'd definitely be room for squad rotation, and
Yeah.
four of the players come to mind: Aubameyang, Martinelli, Torreira, and Mesut Ozil.
You're kidding.
No way.
That's controversial
Because,
now.
no, do you know why? Because with Vieira and Petit behind him, we'd be playing his style of play.
Okay, so Richard, Hopes is saying that the midfield of Vieira and Petit would be able to withstand having an Ozil. And who's he going to replace? Hopes.
Do you know who would replace? Because I was going to come to that. Remember, Bergkamp never used to fly when we played outside of Europe because he had the phobia because he nearly had a crash in the air. So he would be exemplary, Ozil, to especially play in those games away from home, and to give Bergkamp a bit of respite as well. And just imagine both of them running a show; it would just be magic. Or one of them away.
And you're talking about an Ozil this year in that team.
Yeah, I genuinely believe Ozil would get into that team because you've got to think a team it's made up of 11 players. And he would have had the personnel around him to let him get away with his errors here or there. Put another way, because of the other 9 outfield players, we could afford him.
Didn't you used
Tony,
to play a 4-4-2 those days?
I'm not benching him, Tony. I'm not benching him. What I'm saying, remember, Bergkamp never used to fly away, and we
Yeah.
used to miss him a lot,
yeah, yeah.
because there was no, we'd rely on the wingers like Perez, Overmars, and them guys there.
Ozil never flies away either.
Well, because
True.
well, let. Nice one.
When he
I
gets
just
north
got.
of Stevenage, he can't play.
Well, that's because the other guys didn't want to play him, right? Unai Emery. But look at him now. He's been to, he's been to Burnley. He's been all over. Sheffield
He's
United.
he's stamped his
Ray,
passport to
do you know
Burnley.
what? In some sort of way, I agree with Hopes. I actually think that if you gave me Mesut Ozil from the Real Madrid days, then yeah, 100% he would get into
Yeah.
the invincible side. Yes, not as a starting 11 player, but I think that would be a good idea. Like where Bergkamp, he had the fear of flying. So yeah, I think that he would have been the best person to come in, Mesut Ozil to take away. But if you said that Mesut Ozil now, and since he's been at Arsenal, I would say no way in hell.
Yeah. And of course, we welcome all kinds of opinions on this platform, no matter how
No, not just
no matter how wide of the mark, Glenn. Right?
no way. Ozil shouldn't even be making the current squad, let alone the 2003 one. Plus, as I've said, they used to play a 4-4-2. He can't play in that squad.
All right, Glenn, let's dig into this. Who would you, given that Bergkamp couldn't fly, who would you pick as that emergency playing away from home in the Champions League in the early 2000s?
From the current squad,
Yeah.
I'd go with Lacazette as number 10 again. Lacazette as a number 10.
All right.
But Lacazette can't play as a number 10.
I remember you say that, Richard. I remember you say that. But in that team, he would.
All right.
Because of his hold-up play. Okay. Yeah.
All right. That's for. Would you guys take Ramsey back or risk him going to United? And shout out to Lundberg Camp. Thanks for joining us. Hopes, would you take Ramsey?
No. I put a tweet out the other day. Juve are not playing particularly well. The people holding them up, not the people carrying the team are Dybala and obviously yours truly. Not me.
Ronaldo.
Ronaldo. However, Ramsey's done bits there. The thing with Ramsey is we forget he only started coming back into his prime for the first, I think it was a year after or just during that year Arsene Wenger left. He would come back and just annoyingly, he would prove a point here or there. But now we need to get away from this. There's so many players out there, man. Look, Doucouré scored again yesterday. There's Jonathan Fleck out there as well. There's so many other players who could do that, and they've got more to give. They're a bit younger, more hungrier. So no, but that he would come back and prove a point, wouldn't he?
Yeah, Glenn, do you think the boat has sailed on Rambo?
No, not really. I think he would still make a good play in this team right now because we are definitely missing a player like him, a person who can run from midfield to the attack, and we're still missing him.
Do you think you would, Glenn? Do you think you would even entertain coming back to us, or you would look for a more equipped team to win trophies?
Well, since he left us, we've dropped even further, so I don't think you'd want to come back. Richard,
your take on it?
I agree with what Tony's just put in the comments. To be quite honest, I think Rambo's better days are done.
Yeah.
And I think yes, it might have been. I think it was stupid enough for Arsenal to get rid of him, because we let him go for absolutely diddly squat. But he hasn't been playing that great in Juventus. I actually would have thought that he would have gone over there and won something with them, in terms of, because he never hardly won anything with us apart from a few FA Cups here and there.
Yeah.
But no,
Well,
I wouldn't take Rambo as much as I
and
love him as a player, and because of his injury. No, I wouldn't take him.
and forgive me, I'm not sure. Are they still leading the league in Serie A? I know it's a hot race right now, three-way.
Yeah, they are. They are. They're
So maybe they could finish the season with winning a championship. Juventus once again.
they're 3 points clear of Inter, but
All
Inter
right.
have got one game in hand. Sorry, say that again.
They lost yesterday, and Inter have a game in hand on them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, yeah.
Inter Milan are becoming like a club like Man United. Most of their players have come from Man United.
Yeah, but you see, they've got someone there who's really, he's a good guy.
All right.
Yeah,
Conte, and it's all about that, getting the players. Yeah, they, he's getting all these players on loan, and look, he's doing well, isn't he?
All right, let's flash back to that invincible season. We do lose to Manchester United in the FA Cup semi-final, a 1-0 loss. Paul Scholes scoring. We all remember the pain of losing to Chelsea in the Champions League at the quarterfinal stage. That left back, I forget his name. He scored against us, the Chelsea left back. 3-2, we go out, when possibly we had a great chance of winning the Champions League that year. I'm sure someone will fill me in on that left back from Chelsea.
Who's it? Graham Defoe?
No, the other one.
Ashley
Bridges.
Cole?
Was it Wayne Bridges?
Wayne Bridges.
Bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one, John Terry, who slept with his wife.
That
yeah,
guy.
that was it.
That guy.
Yeah.
Moving on. So we're invincibles that year. Chelsea starting to come to the fore. We see this happening. They're trying to poach some of our better players. Richard Vieira that summer, who's the mainstay of our team. We again come second in the league, but we do win the FA Cup against Manchester United, 0-0 on penalties. Glenn Vieira's
that was the season that we started, and Manchester United ended our 49-game unbeaten run. That Rooney controversial penalty and all. But it was good to end the season with a penalty, but it was sad since most of our invincible players are now starting to leave. But winning that FA Cup that we were completely battered in, we shouldn't have won that game. But it was nice winning that FA Cup.
Richard, Vieira's last kick was a winning kick.
Yeah, I believe it was at the Millennium Stadium, wasn't it? Cardiff's ground.
Yeah.
And what a game that was. I think it was a game of two halves. To be honest, I thought we played all right in the second half, just didn't take our chances.
And we were very, very lucky to get to 0-0 hopes by the end of the game and get the penalties.
Yeah, you know how it is. Cup games, you need a bit of lady luck. You can't always be on your first, your best performance.
Best part of that was Alex Ferguson raging about how United were the better team and should have won easily.
When didn't he do that? When didn't he do that?
I think we had some major forward players out, suspended or injured. No Henry, I believe, and we struggled to get to the end of that game 0-0, won it on penalties. So,
and this is what it means, isn't it? I mean, in terms of once you get a couple of wins under your belt, like Liverpool are doing now, they're just coasting. They're coasting. Sometimes you think, oh, they're going to draw, they're going to lose.
Yeah.
Suddenly, last minute, last kick, done. Game over.
This is the thing, Richard. When a team like Liverpool gets rolling, maybe you don't need 11 players performing at their peak. You need maybe 7 out of 10s from some, but complacency can maybe kick in as well.
Yeah, I sort of agree with what Hope said. Like at the moment, Liverpool in the league, they're just taking every game as they come. They're just taking one game at a time. The Invincibles were doing exactly the same. They was taking one game at a time. If they knew the first half wasn't going right, we switch it in the second. And that's what Liverpool's doing. There's been games where Liverpool have been 1-0 down, come back second half, won the game 2-1. So they're just doing exactly what the Invincible used to do, taking one game as it comes.
Yeah. In 2005, the league, Champions League, round of 16, we lose to Bayern Munich 3-2. At the start of our dalliance with Bayern Munich and Barcelona throughout the years. 2005, 2006, Glenn. We come fourth in the league, but we do get all the way to that Champions League final versus Barca.
So one of our many fourth place position finishes. Getting to the final, a final that we were unlucky with the Lehmann red card. A final would have ended up winning if we had 11 men, I believe. Unfortunate to lose in the final 10 minutes, Belletti and Eto'o scoring. But that was the season where Chelsea won the back-to-back Premier League titles. The previous season they had beaten us in the Champions League. So I believe that now gotten the momentum. They had now started becoming a better team, and as you can see right now, they overtook us in the number of Premier League titles and all that. So that was a good season for us. But if you won the Champions League, I believe things would have been different right now.
Yeah, for sure. Hopes, our run to the final was made up of kind of a patchwork back four. And it's kind of testament that good things can happen if you play like a team, even though you may not be the best suited back four, like the back four of days of old, but you can still get to a final playing together. And maybe Arteta can take something from that.
Yeah, that's what we've been missing in recent years, isn't it? No kind of camaraderie,
Team spirit,
team spirit,
togetherness.
Yeah, absolutely. All of those things. Yeah. I put another tweet out the other day. Like, I don't know if any of the panel members have seen Arsenal Twitter account, their Insta account, and all their social media accounts there. They keep sending out videos of the lads in Dubai and their training and how they all look so happy, and this photo and that photo. And I'm like, well, it's fantastic doing it, like, when it's 35 degrees somewhere in the sun. Can you do it on a, Monday night when Mustafi's just got Luis sent off? Because I didn't see anyone going up to Mustafi putting their arm around him.
True.
even though he'd made a mistake. So going back to the initial question, yeah, it is a team game. It's a team sport, and it is about, come on, lift your head up. We can do this, and also not just at down times, but even in the good times, ensuring that one does not become complacent. Because when that starts happening, you leave pockets behind for the other team to run into, and you start being lazy, then you start blaming, and all sorts of madness is creeping. But that's something we desperately need. Is something that you asked a couple of shows ago to the panel, a different panel, what does Arteta need to do to for this season to be deemed a good season for him? And I said he's already done it. He's got us being accountable. He's got us playing as a team. So much so putting, the things he's done with Ainsley Maitland-Niles, the things he's doing with Saka as in left back, and not just putting them in there to be on the firing line, but you can see that they're really taking into those roles. Xhaka, Torreira, Guendouzi, Ozil. So I think it's the third change for the players, the guys, and I think that they're beginning to learn that, because as much as Arteta can embellish it in his presses and really play up to the cameras, or not saying he does play up to them, but do you know what I mean? He can promote that when he's in a presser. You can see on the pitch the relationships still haven't formed between Pepe and Laka, between Pepe and Aubameyang, between Martinelli and these guys, between Ozil and the forward, the other two wingers. These relations, and that will come with time once they get a system in place. And I am really, really excited to see when they come back from Dubai, well,
Mhm.
what have you been doing? You know, because every game we've been playing under Arteta, we've seen something different. And don't forget, we were left on a cliffhanger in our last game against Burnley when Mikel Arteta, he changed, the players which he put out. Is there going to be, some kind of like change? Is he gonna totally surprise us? Is he gonna?
Are you talking about in terms of shoehorning Lacazette into the lineup for putting Martinelli on the right side?
Well, it goes back to your original question, doesn't it? I mean, in terms of, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, what surprised a lot of people.
What was he
Um,
doing? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. If they can connect on the pitch, we've got the squad. That's why it's not like, oh my God, Arsenal are 10th and end of the world. And,
Yeah.
because Liverpool are doing so well, it's like, yeah, we're not competing. We're not up there for the top four. But because of our squad, the strength and the depth of players that we have. And now, Holding's back and he hasn't played. Ceballos is back and he hasn't played.
And
Um,
we've definitely underperformed, and Liverpool has maybe overperformed.
well, no, because you can't compare. They're unable to compare because before you say that, Liverpool are plus 5 years on us.
I'm not
Mm.
saying that we should be level on points right now with Liverpool, but I'm saying Liverpool have probably picked up 6, 7, 8 points more than they should have, and we've definitely dropped around 10 points that we should
Absolutely.
have picked up.
And that's what comes, a lot of these draws could have been changed to
Wins.
W's. I mean, and we
Yeah.
don't even if we take VAR out of it, because we lost, a few points because of incorrect decisions, even with VAR. But that's what the team spirit, to keep it in the context of your initial question,
Yeah.
that's what team spirit buys you. Liverpool are slightly ahead on points, or like they got more points, or they're nicking, they're getting the ball over the line to nick it 1-0. And
Hmm.
here we keep, just draws.
Um,
We've had more draws than Tina Turner in his cupboard.
Richard, so we're going back to where we preferenced the final season at the Highbury Stadium, and
Yeah.
we're getting ready to leave. We're going to be financing this new shiny Emirates Stadium, and Tony Turner said parting ways with Vieira for Fabregas was one of the worst moves.
I think it was. I think we didn't really need Fabregas at the time. I thought that Patrick Vieira was playing well up until he decided to leave us in the end.
Hmm.
I think I don't think Arsenal tried hard enough to give him another year, like another contract, to see us out for the Emirates. I don't think that they tried hard enough,
because
and I
because
agree.
Wenger did see um, Fabregas coming to the fore.
Yeah, and I do agree. I think parting ways, from Vieira and getting Fabregas, I think it was the worst decision made by the club at that particular point at time. But if you go forward a few years, would we be saying that? People would say, "Oh, why don't we take Fabregas back?" In terms of the way he was playing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a tough one, but I just think that moving from Highbury to Emirates, I do think was the worst mistake. Because as I said before, it's like we left our soul at Highbury, but never took that soul to Emirates.
Yeah.
So yeah, I regret moving to the Emirates.
I know, but it was necessary commercially and all that stuff. That okay, we can take what Ivan Gazidis said, but as a bitter pill to swallow, what we've seen. Glenn, what's your take on Vieira leaving? Fabregas is now coming into the fore. We're starting to switch our midfield from stronger physical players to shorter, quicker, nippier midfielders.
Exactly what I was about to say. At that time, you are now starting to get rid of the strong and physical players and starting to get these flashy kind of players. And as Hopes has said, players taking pictures in Dubai. That's not we were used to those days. Players those days would get into the pitch and play the game. But at that time now,
Mm.
we were starting to get those flashy players. I think replacing Vieira with Fabregas was wrong, but getting Fabregas for the long term, it worked for us because he ended up captain, and I think he did well at Arsenal eventually. Another thing Hope has said is Liverpool is 5 years ahead of us right now. At that time, they almost before they started winning the Champions League and stuff, they're almost 20 years behind us. So I wonder where it all switched up.
So I want to give a shout out to Arsenio Wanga. Thanks for coming into the chat section as well, joining us here. Love the comments you're putting down. Hopes, we're sort of, this is where Arsene Wenger becomes an economist, Hopes, rather than a manager.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, wasn't he always? Wasn't he always? I mean, from his early
I
days,
think he was more of a manager up until the stadium move.
was he? Because when he came, don't forget, he bought Petit Vieira. You know, these people were like £500,000. Anelka, um, you know, and then,
Signings that worked for us and were good for us.
well, at that time, a lot of people, a lot of the Arsenal faithful were like, who? You know, I didn't know Petit Vieira. Did any of the panel? Anelka,
No.
you know,
No, at the time, no.
not at the time. And you see, a star's made or a star's found. You know, yeah, you know, that's a
Yeah,
whole
that's
different topic.
That's an interesting take.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know. But then, as soon as the Emirates was on the horizon, and it's funny because I've just moved, and I just want to show you something. 1 minute.
Okay. Let's get through some comments while we're waiting for the show and tell from Hopes. Arsenio Wanga, thanks for coming in. Highbury was our real home. You don't leave your home where you were settled. You build on that aura. We decided to abandon that aura, move to a stadium that has no soul. And furthermore, we dismantled that invincible team. Glenn, we dismantled that invincible team. Okay,
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry.
Carry on. Sorry, I didn't mean to rudely interrupt. This was
Who is
this
that? David Dean and Arsene Wenger?
Yeah, I believe so. This was season 2001, when we played Aston Villa, and it was just, you know, the news about the Emirates had just been had, and I've just moved, so I've just found a lot of my old programs, and so this is going back. Yeah, that's 19 years. You know, that's 19 years old. You know, it's still younger than Tina Turner, but you know, 19 years old, you know, and it in there is all about the move, and so on and so forth. But yeah, you know, Wenger had to therefore then it was Peter Hillwood, actually, not David Dean. Sorry, you threw me there. It was Peter Hillwood, and it was a model of our proposed stadium. It was a model then. So this already started happening in, you know, when was this? December 2001.
Yeah, this is when the planning permission was going in. Glenn, I'm going to get back to you. We're starting to dismantle our invincible team. Richard, we're starting to dismantle our invincible team.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time during the Invincibles, as they was getting older, they wasn't as quick as they used to be. I think it was the right time to dismantle the players. But I just wish we took the Invincible players to Emirates. You know, I just wish they all stayed on for that little bit longer. And I think we might have had a really, really good start to Emirates. Yeah, we were unbeaten at Emirates in the first couple of games before we played against West Ham, I believe it was. And it was West Ham that stopped our unbeaten run at the Emirates and finally beat us there. But yeah, dismantling the Invincibles at that point, I was quite upset about that, really, because they was like the best memories of Arsenal.
Go ahead.
Oh, right, sorry. Yeah, I just I didn't want to interrupt.
You're gasping for breath. The
No, I didn't. I didn't want to interrupt. You know, there's a part of me that really wonders. You know, are a lot of the Arsenal fans only missing the Emirates because of our dip in form, because things have gone downhill since then. All right, we won a few cups. Even when we got to the Emirates, I think it was a whole season. We had some really dodgy results, even though we had a lot of the Arsenal players, the invincible squad still there. But even if let's say 50% of them were not there, at least that mentality still was. The manager was still the same. What a change. We'd only moved ground. Now, let's say if we moved to the Emirates and we were competing with the likes of, United back then and Chelsea, because that's when Jose came in, right? And he changed the whole. He had his thing added to English football. But if that didn't happen, if we did better, how many fans would be so stuck in nostalgic mode over Highbury?
Yeah. So
Holmes, you know what? I miss Highbury because that's where all my good memories were, and as a fan growing up, that's where all my memories have always been. And when Arsenal decided to move from Highbury to go to the Emirates, it kind of upsetted me because, like, it's been down to generations. It's like my granddad used to go to Highbury every Saturday night, go and watch Arsenal play.
Yeah.
And I never got to go to Highbury and watch Arsenal play. I've never been to an Arsenal game in my life.
Do you know what it was like, Richard?
So every time I would go and stand outside Highbury, I'd think of all the memories that we've had there, like winning league titles, winning FA Cups. Even I always got the feeling of my granddad being there, and it kind of felt me more closer to him as well. That's the reason why I miss Highbury.
Glenn, I'm going to give an analogy, Glenn. It's like moving house to a newer house, but not bringing your family with you. We moved to a stadium and didn't bring a lot of that team with us as well, so it was a bit of a double hit.
And that felt like the first step of now starting a new Arsenal. The stadium was the first step, and then getting rid of the players, and now starting to become more of a selling club and not the title contenders that we are. That was the first step, and that is why fans would be frustrated. The previous season before that, Barkamp didn't even play in the final, and that also made us feel like, wow, we're actually getting rid of our spine and every player that we are used to, and now we're now starting a new Arsenal.
Well, yeah, Bergkamp's end of Bergkamp's career coincided with the Highbury days. Hopes, anything to add?
Yeah, I think I can totally understand what Richard's saying about his memories and with his grandfather, and there were a lot of that, and it was a case of when we moved to the Emirates, it was a time to make new memories. But with that massive debt over our heads, and then suddenly Arsenal having to become the economist, as Tony's speaking about in the comments, and your question was, what choice did we kind of have? It's a bit like what Tottenham are going through at the minute, although they've got no history and they're just absolute shit. Let's get that right. But every team who does that, unless they don't have oil money or gas money or whatever, are going to go through that phase. The Uniteds of this world have not moved stadium, but they're having that effect post Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah.
So we had ample time. Still, I started becoming weary of Arsene Wenger around about 2007, 2008, because suddenly he just seemed to me to be losing the plot, and then it just we all know what happened thereafter.
All right.
Would you guys say it was the right move, but not at the right time?
Is there ever? When is the
point.
right time? When is the right time? Because
it's just because the team was starting to age, this invincible team, and the move was precipitated by the need to move, and then we had all of these players, and we started selling those players to Manchester City, getting the money, good money for them, hopes, but yeah.
No, but that's what I'm saying, isn't it? That when is the right time? So, for instance, one could argue that if we left Highbury and our results were absolutely abysmal and catastrophic and really poor. And then we moved here. Then, then what would be the conversation?
Mm,
Equally, when we left Highbury, the conversation was about we're going to compete, sorry, not complete, but
yeah.
to compete with the elite in Europe and to go to that next level. However, a lot of decisions, poor management from the board. We didn't know back then. Well, I certainly didn't. I can't say we. I didn't know back then
Most
that
fans.
that Arsene Wenger was the operations director. He was,
The janitor.
yeah, he was everything. He was everything. I mean, did you guys?
He
No,
locked
I
up at
didn't.
night and opened up in the morning.
Did the panel?
No, no.
But yeah, so do you know what I mean? I mean, like when it's
All,
so I questioned when is the right time.
and all of
The
this
one
would
thing I
come
would
to
say,
light 10 years later. Go ahead, Glenn.
the one thing I would say is we've always had that we don't have cash to buy players because we moved stadiums. How about you would have, because Ray has just said we have started to get rid of our older players. How about you would have gotten new players first, like at least 12, 13 players, build with them, and then get into a new stadium. Rather than selling your players, remaining with zero players, and then getting a new stadium, and then starting to buy mediocre players because you don't have money.
Mm.
Yeah, but also, I mean, my comeback to that would be we sold players, but how many of them wanted to leave as well? Because they've kind of done it for, they've done it in England. They've won the FA Cup, they've won the Premier League, back to back a couple of times, a couple of doubles. I was having exactly the same conversation with my good friend. He supports Liverpool, even though he's my good friend. And I said to him, if you look at
For now,
Alex,
he's a good friend.
if you look at Trent Arnold, and if you look at Andy Robertson for Liverpool, they in 2 seasons they're about to win. Well, they've won the Champions
Yeah.
League, the Super Cup, the World Cup, the World Club Cup, whatever you call it, and soon to be the Premier League. And they're both like they're what they
20.
20, 21, 22 years
Yeah.
old, if that
Yeah.
19, 20, 21.
Younger
Now,
than Glenn.
let's say if the agents or if something comes up in their ear because they're so young they can be swayed. Life's better at Barca, life's better at Real. No matter what they do, it's a different country. It's more warmer. It's a bit. Money's there, and you'll be playing. Everyone in the team will be a world-class name, and so on and so forth. You're telling me they wouldn't go? The point I'm trying to make, Glenn, is that had the players thought, right, that's it now? Or was it contract decisions? I don't know. My memory can't go back 20 years,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
because I do know, after they started going, then we had Van Pagen going, we had Fabregas was leaving, Flamini, Wenger literally, like, he left with, he managed us with 2 or 3 teams breaking down over the last over the last 18 years of his
15.
17. Yeah, and we don't really know because Wenger used to keep his cards very close to his chest. But
Yeah.
reading in between the lines, like we do with Mikel Arteta now and Unai Emery, now social media is so prevalent, and we have instant access to a lot of these press conferences, and if anything happens, even with the players putting out tweets or Instagram posts and so on and so forth. What I'm trying to say is now, like just over Christmas, for instance, oh, Aubameyang's going to leave. Aubameyang's going to leave, and he quashed the rumors like that. But back then, there wasn't that availability of information. So how do
Yeah.
we know? And I believe back then, a lot of some of the players also said, or Wenger came out and said, I will always help them achieve their dreams.
Their
You know,
moves, their dream
yeah,
moves. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
There was a willingness to sell the players to fund the stadium. There's no doubt about that, Richard. And there was a
Yeah.
willingness to move the players. And Wenger almost acted like a father to a lot of these players. He would give Henry the move that he wanted, Vieira, and so forth.
Yeah, because probably he thought that they deserved it after everything they'd done for Arsenal, everything they'd done for the club.
Yeah.
The only thing what was missing was a Champions League, a European trophy. That was what was missing.
For
And
us,
they thought,
yeah.
and they was thinking, well, if I can't get it here, and I've tried to get one here, maybe I need to go elsewhere to go and get it. And Arsenal,
Yeah.
over the years, we've become a selling club. It's more or less that where the players have done everything with their teams, we're like a retiring home for them.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
what it's like. That's what it's
Yeah.
like. I mean, I know that Van Persie came to Arsenal. I know he wanted to win everything with us. Yeah, he won sort of bits and pieces apart from winning the Golden Boot for one season. And then he thought, well, if Arsenal, he was thinking, well, I don't see no ambition. I don't see them, competing for the title or anything. So he thought, do you know what? I'll go to Man United. What did he do? Went to Man United, won everything with them.
Yeah.
We was more, we was, it's what you're giving the players. If you don't show no ambition to these players, what do you
Yep.
expect them to do?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because their playing career becomes first.
And Tony Turner, this is probably a telling point here. Tina said, Dean leaving and Stan getting more power started to dim us. And there's no doubt about that. We're in 2007. This is where it's starting to happen. Arsenio Wongo is saying, I was telling people Dangote is going to bid for the club 5 months before Sky and media knew about it. I ain't going to say much, but I know a lot of people who are in the know. 2022 is the year to look out for. And
yeah.
perhaps, yeah.
Can I just sorry, Ray. Tina says that, but then last night Tina's tweeting me saying he wanted Rabiot, and I said exactly what Richard just said. We're not like a nursing home, where these players come and retire.
He wants a player
And
who's going to be.
then Tina started saying he'd have his mum, and I said it's not this sort of show,
Lombard Camp, I remember the night on Claude's stream. Okay. But Rabiot is the kind of player we're looking out for in midfield, right, Glenn? Right now, we need that kind of midfielder.
We are, yes, but he's mostly injured all the time, and his age too. So I think there are better players out there, like Doucouré, as Hopes always says. So not Rabiot for me. We've seen many players come into England and not adapting quickly enough.
Yeah.
Absolutely, definitely. There are so many younger, hungrier midfielders, box to box. Stan's always talking about playing with two number 8s, although I still don't see how. But playing with two number 8s, and there are
number 8
so
to make it 16.
exactly there are so many other younger, more hungrier players than Rabiot, and you'll get a sell-on value as well, even if we use them for a couple of seasons. I mean, I heard today, I don't know if the panel's heard this, that apparently Jack Grealish going to Man United is done. And if it is, it's again, thanks Raul and everyone else who was telling us to be excited.
Ryan from Mr. Arsenal podcast.
Going to other clubs. Well, I'm not excited. I'm scared.
Ryan, thanks for joining us from Mr. Arsenal podcast. Appreciate you. Everyone, get the likes up. Thanks. Get fans.
Do you know what? When Stan Kroenke came in and he brought Arsenal, well, I say brought in, but when he came in 2007, I was worried, very worried, because I knew what he was doing over in America in certain events that he was doing there. So I knew it was going to go downhill when he came in. But I was telling my dad back then, he said, Stan Kroenke's taken over. I went, oh my God, what have we done? That was my first instinct. And I said that years ago, that when we was in the Champions League, I even said that we would drop out of the Champions League and we'll go into Europa League. Now, for us at the minute, we're currently 10th in the Premier. We're currently 10th in the Premier League. We're not going to get European football in terms of the way if we keep going for getting top four. Top four for me is dead, completely dead. And I think for us coming out of European football for a whole year would be ideal for us, because we would be able to get to grips of what direction we want to go in. What truly ambition do we have as a club? And what is Stan Kroenke going to do to make us achieve it? Because at the moment, Stan Kroenke could come in and say, right, I could give you £200-300 million. We still can't spend it. And the reason why we can't spend it because of the FFP. We've got the wages.
The
Mesut
wages.
Ozil. People may not think this, but actually, Mesut Ozil is taking over £500,000 a year from us. £500,000. And the reason people say, yeah, but it's just he's 350 grand. It's not. We're also paying his partnerships, Adidas,
Yeah, I
his
think it's
commercials as well.
more than that, Richard.
It's £500,000.
Hold on. You said £500,000 a year.
No, a week. Sorry, no,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah,
a week.
I was going to say.
Sorry, no, it's £500,000 a week. He's getting.
I was thinking as well. I was like, it's got to be a week. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, no. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's £500,000 a week.
Yeah, you're good,
Which
Richard.
is £18 million a year in wages alone. Over to you guys. I just wanted to buy
Yeah.
Let's.
And this is why if Stan Kroenke wanted to give us the money, he can, but we can't spend it. We need to get him off the wage bill for us to go and spend bigger money.
Again, I'm going to reference same old Arsenal podcast. I was watching that yesterday. They mentioned that the LA Rams stadium build is becoming a huge problem for Stan. And
there you go.
On their portfolio, Arsenal is now something like 39th richest on their portfolio profile. It could be possible, Glenn, that the Kroenkes may need to sell Arsenal to fund that LA Rams project. And just dig into that a little bit for me, Glenn.
I've just put out a preview for Arsenal, and I've just said Stan Kroenke is the same as Mike Ashley at Newcastle, the same team you're going to play next week. I do not know what was the reason for him buying Arsenal. Was it to come and bolster his CV at Arsenal, or come and try and settle the debts that we have? Because I really don't understand why he came to Arsenal.
Mm-hmm.
Any idea?
David Dean bringing Kroenke into Arsenal was the start of our problems. We changed from Arsenal FC to Arsenal PLC. Great comment.
I agree. 100%.
PLC.
Well, the reason Stan Kroenke came to Arsenal, just to get in there, in my opinion, for Glenn's comments, was we're a cash cow, just to siphon money off. It's a bit like what's happened with Man United and the Glaziers when they first came in, and Man United fans were having the green and yellow scarf, and they want them out, and however, in the last, I guess in the last 10 years, they've started to spend more money, and we start looking at one player. We have one player who's causing us so much issue in our wage structure. That is Mesut Ozil. Yeah, I look at the likes of Man United. They've gone and got this Bruno guy. They've got Pogba. They've got they're paying silly money to like all these players. Yet we can't afford that. Yet we moved to the Emirates to do this. It's something somewhere. It just isn't right with the finances. And our biggest disadvantage is that the Kroenkes are not footballing men. They don't have that.
Yeah.
They don't have that hunger. I believe Ray said in a different podcast that they're more about the NFL.
He doesn't even like football.
No, they're not even into football.
And you said 80 million a year?
Sorry, say that again.
You said 80 million a year for Ozil.
18. That's just his wages.
18, yeah.
18 million a year for someone who has one assist the entire season. You're definitely doing something wrong.
That's what we're paying. That's what he's costing us, Glenn. £18 million per season. That's why he's laughing. That's why he's loving life in London. I mean, wouldn't you be loving life in London if you were earning £18 million a year and getting away with everything that he does get away with? And that's why he sorry, Ray. And that's why he turns around and says, "Well, I love it here. Everything's fantastic," and blah 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 blah.
So, Richard, the idea of having so many sports franchises in your portfolio is that you can skim a certain percentage off of every franchise and divert that somewhere, and that's probably where a lot of our money is going to the LA Rams.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's more or less I look at I look at the Cronkies and the way they're managing Arsenal. It's like as if we are their insurance policy. It's like if anything goes wrong elsewhere, they'll be like, okay, I'll go back to Arsenal. I'll get whatever I need from there and take it elsewhere. That's what we are to them. We are an insurance policy. If you look at the likes of Chelsea's owner, he is a football man. He wants what's best for the club. Look at what Chelsea's achieved over the years. It's completely different. Stan Kroenke's come in since 2007. He's now got full ownership. When he had full ownership, that whole season, that summer transfer window was a very most important thing because that is the time where he has full ownership. Have I been excited? I have in some of the signings that we brought in, but not overly excited.
And Lundberg saying we've become a club to be a shop window for players, a stepping stone club hopes.
Sorry, say that again?
Lundberg Camp is saying we've pretty much become a shop window for players to go on to bigger clubs.
But I question that. Have we? Have we become a stepping stone, or have those players, i.e., Sanchez, Van Pagan, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain,
Van Persie, Van Payton, Van Persie.
you know, have these players just had enough of the bullshit? It's like you know, we're adults here and we all work outside. Okay, now if your manager keeps telling you stuff like things are going to happen, you're going to get a pay rise, you're going to do this, we're going to send you on the training course. You get the point, right? And it doesn't happen. So going back to Lundberg Camp's point, are we becoming that club? I don't think so, because we're still able to pull in the likes of Pepe, Martinelli. All right, Martinelli wasn't like a big star. He's one of them. Going back to the earlier conversation, you know, are they stars or are they made into stars? But
I think we all maybe accept that Pepe and Martinelli may move on eventually to bigger clubs.
Well, that's the game of football, right? And depending who we've got, if we can nurture them, you know, I would, you know, then why not? I mean, look at Southampton. I would say if we were in Southampton shoes, there was that period when the Invincibles were breaking up, and it was after the Invincibles broke up, and it was the second team. So when we had Fabregas, Henry, Flamini, and they were going into mainland Europe. Italy's like AC Milan's, Barcelona's. We did have that, and we was beginning to look like that kind of club. Then we fed a couple of players to City, but
we won at Inter 5-1, 6-1, a great game.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not sure if we can say that yet. You know, did Alexis? You know, I can ask you the same question a different way. Did Alexis Sanchez just get pissed off? Because remember when we drew like 3-0, when we were 3-0 down to Crystal Palace, and then we came back and won, and all our players were celebrating, and he was like, "What are you celebrating for? We've just dropped. You know, we've just gone down. You know." So it depends how, you know, whatever your perception is on that, but that's my perception.
Yeah, so
I don't really think we're becoming a shop window. I think you've already been that for the last 10 years. Since Nasri, Kolo Toure, Adebayo moved to Man City, I think we've always been a selling club since.
Yeah, but I was kind of happy to get rid of Adebayo.
Yeah, so listen, we're going to go to 2007 and skim through because of time constraints. We kind of got. I think it was a very, very good conversation to move from the Emirates, from Highbury to the Emirates. I think it was a good conversation that we just had in the last 20 minutes. And we want to keep this to around the 135, 140 mark. So we're going to compress the next 10 years or so. But we're moving from 2000s to 2007, where we've been consistently second, first, and intervals, second year. And then we're going into a string of fourth place finishes, Richard. 2007, 2008, we have a great opportunity to win the league with Eduardo, unfortunately, breaking his leg at Birmingham.
Yeah, I think that season, the second season, I actually think we should have won the league that season. We should have done.
We were going great guns, and the date that it happened to him, my brother-in-law has always had a feeling that that was a bad day when it comes to practice.
Yeah, I honestly think in that season when we got our first injury in that season, I think it went downhill after that because we got so many other injuries after that, and I think after losing certain key players, the mentality of the squad went.
Yeah, Glenn, you remember somebody had made a comment about the biggest turning point was bringing William Gallas in and giving him the number 10 shirt as well.
Yeah, I remember that 2007, 2008 game that Toto broke his leg. And I remember Gala sitting in the middle of the pitch crying, and he was captain at that time. So that is when our captains now started becoming mediocre. We had gotten rid of Vieira and Henry and started getting mediocre captains. And but that Eduardo injury definitely was cost us the league that season. I think we
Yeah.
were top first, second till around the match or something. So unfortunate not to win the league that season.
Yeah, hopes we want to highlight the great times and how we've depreciated over 20 years. And we're starting to see our depreciation with a player like William Gallas becomes our captain. And then he does the very captainly thing of crying in the center circle away from home after losing a game.
Yes.
What does that tell? What do the rivals take from our rivals take from that in the league?
The panel, Richard and Glenn, exactly, summed it up there perfectly well. It was that was when the decline of Wenger in my eyes started. We just, suddenly from going over the line, we were now that team who were struggling to get over the line, and the infrastructure around us, the players, the personnel, the squad, the morale, the confidence, all of that was beginning to tumble. That was the beginning and the end for me for Arsene Wenger. His tactics were second rate to Jose Mourinho. Alex Ferguson pulled his socks up and he was taking, Chelsea became that team to beat. But Alex Ferguson was adapting. Wenger didn't, Wenger was getting called out because it was like, okay, what's the plan B here? It's all about attacking. Our defense was just all over the place, and it was a case of, what has he done? Questions were being asked about, okay, we haven't replaced Adams, Keown, Dixon, Winterburn. I think we had Ashley Cole and, Lauren around. But, do you know what I mean? Like, it was just things were happening. I think talk was of Ashley leaving to go to Chelsea. He's another pagan. So, like, just Ashley Cole, they called him after that, Ashley Cole. So it was sad, because it was just those days were fast. The old days. Well, not the old days, like you know what I mean. The late 90s, early
Winning.
2000s.
We were winning.
The ways of winning, and more so the team, the DNA had been taken out.
Hopes, you've touched on something that I'm going to ask Richard and Glenn, but I'll answer it myself. And the question is, when did Richard and Glenn, when did you lose faith or start to lose faith in Arsene Wenger? For me, it was when we lost I think it was 3-1 at home to Aston Villa. Probably, I don't know what year it was, but you all remember when we lost on that opening day, 3-1 at home to Aston Villa. Richard, when did you start losing faith in Arsene Wenger?
I lost faith in Arsene Wenger year 2010 is when I lost faith in him.
Was it any specific result that you remember was the moment? The final
No, it wasn't that. It was more or less that I didn't see any direction from the club. It was more or less top four was a trophy, and that's all that we was going for. We wasn't pushing further up the table to go and get, to fight for the Premier League or anything like that. So that was the reason why I lost faith in him in 2010, because I didn't see any desire to go and fight for a league.
Glenn, when did you start to lose faith in Arsene?
I'd exactly agree with Richard. 2010, because in 2007, 8, and 9, Man U won 3 titles in a row, and in 2010, Chelsea won their 3rd title. Let's all remember you had 3 titles and Chelsea had 0 at a time, and they came and overtook us. Plus, Manchester City had just gotten their new owner. They had bought Robinho. they looked like a team that was going to start challenging for the title. So at that time, I was seeing 3 teams ahead of us when we were only competing with Man U. But at that time, Chelsea, Man U, and Man City were all ahead of us. So that's the season I was like, we need something new. So 2010.
Let me expand further with Arsene Wenger. So there was one result where I lost faith in him. Was at Aston Villa at home. Hopes one action that turned me against Arsene Wenger. We're probably all going to say the same thing. Was selling Robin van Persie to a direct rival,
Yeah.
and then having to watch Manchester United fans laugh in our face as they went on to win the league quite easily that year.
Absolutely, because Van Persie was I think wasn't he our player of the season that
Yep.
year as well? He just
30 years,
come,
30
you know,
goals.
prior to that time, he had I think 1 or 2 injuries. He was coming in and out of the squad, and we saw him score that amazing, that amazing volley. And I think this, this decision in hindsight, Wenger will kick himself about, because I think he thought he took a massive gamble that we've just got the best out of Van Pagan. If we cash in on him, I can replace him for cheaper. And this is what I think was going on in Wenger's head. I can replace him for cheaper. I can get a better player, and he's not going to be able to do that again. But then, and this is why, even to this day, let's not forget Cesc Fabregas, Thierry Henry. They've played under some of the greatest managers in this game, yet they always say that the good guy, like the best manager they've played under is Arsene Wenger, because he was more like a father figure for them. Yeah, in one hand he's the he's the accountant, but on the other hand he's not letting, he's not as ruthless as Mourinho was, and therefore he made that decision for Van Pagan to go to United
I get what you're saying now. Van Pagan, I've been correcting you the whole time. Van Pagan.
Oh, God. Mate, stop hanging around with Tina. Stop hanging around with Tina, man. Oh, I'm going to start calling you Rita and Tina. Right, yeah, no, and that's what's been, and that is why, yeah, and that is why I think it just came to it just backfired on him. Like one of them decisions, like
Yeah. He thought he was so clever, though, Arsene Wenger, in terms of knowing when a player may have come to the end of his career, Richard.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that Wenger probably knew he was coming to an end point at Arsenal. But as I said before, it was more or less that if we wasn't going to give Van Persie any direction, there was nothing else to offer him. So he was thinking, I've got to leave. I've got to go if they're not offering me anything.
The little child inside me, the little Manchester United fan inside of me needs to go.
It's not more or less that. It was more or less he was more thinking about his career and him and building a big, profile for himself to say, look, I've won Premier League titles, I've won Champions Leagues. If he was at Arsenal, he would have none of that on his CV because we couldn't offer him. At that time, we had no sense of direction.
Yeah. Shit. I had something in my mind to ask now. Go ahead, Glenn. We want to take that point on.
From Richard. So which season are we in? 2008.
So I don't think we asked you when there was a specific, or how did you feel about? Did Wenger do anything specific to turn you against him? And then we'll get off that point. Get off that point. Talk about FA Cups.
For me, it has to be selling Van Persie to Manchester United. That has to be the thing.
Yeah.
He was our best player for 3-4 seasons, and we ended up selling him to Man U. And you guys remember how painful it was seeing him scoring against us in the first 3 minutes of the first game at Old Trafford.
It was painful for me. Every goal he scored was like a dagger in the heart to me. Every goal he scored for Manchester United. He had a great start to the season.
Winning the league in the very first season. Yeah. People are actually talking about, Van Persie is leaving Arsenal because he wants to win trophies. and we actually proved them right because he won the title in the first season. So that is
Yeah.
when I turned against Wenger.
Yeah, and just in the comments, like Arsenio Wonga and Lundberg Camp has reminded me of that 8-2
Oh,
loss that we
right.
suffered. That was
Yeah.
so painful. And then if that wasn't bad enough, London Old School, he says we then signed a Shamak that season, and it was
Yeah.
so true because we were all thinking that Shamak was going to be like Anelka Part 2, and
Yeah.
look what he turned out to be.
And
It's just like,
Sanogo is there somewhere, Richard, as well.
oh,
Yeah,
don't say
yeah.
Yeah.
the S word. Don't say the S word.
I mean, look, Ray. Like as I said, like when we was, we in terms of from 2010 and up until now, over the past decade, we've been more or less a selling club than a buying club.
Yeah.
If you look
And,
at over the decade, the majority of it is us selling players.
and we're talking about in the first part of the podcast, Bergkamp's, Henri's, and Elka's. Ian Wright before that. And now we're talking about Sanogo, the S word. And who's the other one we just mentioned? Shamak, of all people, Shamak. Shout out to Gundam News for joining us in the comments. Thanks for lighting it up in there. Glenn, FA Cup. We come into some good years. We just talked about our fallow years. So, FA Cup, we finally break the 9-year hoodoo. The media's kept on talking about Arsenal not winning a trophy, not winning a trophy. The years started to click up, and we get that FA Cup triumph finally.
And that game started with a 2-0. They scored 2 goals. And I was like, oh, God, here we go again. It's going to be tense.
Shades of
Imagine if
Birmingham
you actually
for me.
lost that game. Imagine if you actually lost that game. It was 2-0, and I remember Cazorla's free kick got us back into the game. And that game for me made Ramsey an Arsenal legend for sure.
Wow, you got a great memory, bro.
All right. Richard, I know you have to go. I'm just going to leave you with your thoughts on FA Cup.
I know we've got so many memories of winning FA Cups, so many, and we still hold the record for the most FA Cup wins as well. I've enjoyed every one of the FA Cups.
Yeah.
But the FA Cup for me that stood out the most was the first one we won, where Ramsey scored the last minute winner, and it ended our 9-year doubt. That's what us Arsenal fans needed, was a trophy to finally say yes. And that season we was going through a really bad patch as well. That season we didn't have a great season. So I think winning that FA Cup, it was sort of, I would say it was a happy moment, but it was also, in a sense, papering over the cracks of the Premier League season that we had as well. But I've enjoyed every FA Cup that we've won.
Yeah. Richard, thanks for joining us today. We're going to continue for the next.
Yeah, man, cool. Thank you for having me, Ray.
3 or 4
Thank
years,
you, Hopes.
so.
Thank you, Glenn, as well.
Hopes
Good to
and
see you,
Glenn.
bro. Take care. Look after yourself.
Yeah, man, you too.
Thanks, Richard. All right. So, Hopes, the FA Cup, that whole game. Santi Cazorla brings us back from 2-0 down, like Glenn had said. There's times in every Arsenal fan's memories that you think of a player and you flash back to the things that they did for the club. And for me, Santi Cazorla scoring that free kick was something I'll never forget from Santi.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Santi was what we miss, who we haven't replaced. FA Cups, to me, what they mean is it's silverware, it's a cup, and because we've tasted, the back-to-back double titles, we're now turning our noses up at it. I've seen other YouTubers, podcasters, Arsenal like YouTubers, podcasters saying it's not enough. It's we need to get more. I mean, back in the day, it was a bonus. It was like the cherry on the cake. It's like the custard over the cake. Over your dessert. And now it's just a case of absolutely. The Tina in the Tony. But Now it's a case of if we're just going to use that as an excuse to say, oh, at least we won something, at least we won something, then it's not, it's not gonna do us well. It's not gonna sit well with us. However, at the moment, because we haven't won anything in the last few seasons, I'd happily take an FA Cup. To me, I'm I just love football, and I think silverware. But when you make the FA Cup a priority, that's when it becomes unacceptable, because the league should be our priority, and then anything in addition to that is the cherry on the cake.
Okay,
That
well,
season too, let's not forget, before the final against Hull, also the semi-final wasn't easy. We went 1-0 down to Wigan, and I think Koscielny or
yeah,
Matsaka scored very
Mark,
late on and we went to extra time.
the BFG. He
Yeah, I
scored.
remember people saying we had Wigan and Hull, very easy teams, but also in the first round, we beat Tottenham at home. Rosiski scored, I think, Liverpool at home. So we actually got rid of some good teams that season. So it was something really inspiring to win that title.
Yeah, and I think one of the years as well, Hopes, we beat Everton and Liverpool on the way to the final. I think that may have been the second one where we beat Aston Villa quite convincingly 4-0.
And Manu away too.
And Man U away too. Danny Welbeck.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That was our kind of reciprocation for Van Pagan, wasn't it? Him getting that goal for us. Yeah, hey, in the cup runs, anything can happen, and that's why it's one game. The magic of the cup brings us to light. But let's not. I don't want to shy away from the fact that it shouldn't be our priority. It should be more a case of
Well, would you
the
make
Premier
an
League.
exception? Would you make an exception this year, Hopes?
Yeah, like I said, you have to, because it's better than nothing.
You play
I
the cards
mean,
out, right?
just imagine those lot down the road if they won the FA Cup. Bloody hell, man! Like they'd have
Never
a
the end of
blooming,
it.
they'd have a a national day off or something. None of them going to work or something like that. And here we are, we're turning our noses up at it.
Yeah.
To put it in some context.
I know you have to go.
Another thing I would say,
Go, Glenn.
I think that team of 2015, the team that beat Aston Villa in the final, I think that was our best team since the Invincibles, because I think we had Sanchez, Cazorla, and all the Walcott. We had very good players. And before that, remember, the time we had Sculacci, the Nilsson, Almunia. We had a really awful team. So that was a very good team. That was my best team after the Invincibles, that team that won that FA Cup.
Hopes, I know you have to leave pretty soon, if not now. So I can let
Yeah.
you go, or if you want to talk quickly about 2016, or you want to leave that to me and Glenn. 2016, the year that should have been.
That was close. I always remember that Leicester game. When Welbeck came on and he scored that header for us. And that, you could argue, Ray, from 2007, it was near enough, not good enough. Always, we had this thing amongst the Arsenal fans. I don't want to be just finishing top four. I want to be competing for Champions League. Liverpool had gone and won the Champions League with Rafa Benitez, even though their league position wasn't that great. And since 2007, for me, it was a case of getting close. Then Q 2016, where we were so bloody close, and that goes and happens. But that is in one way, now looking back at it, as painful as it is, and with the benefit of hindsight, that is football for you. That is why I watch. That is why I love it, because we're talking about how close we were. Just imagine how Stevie Gerrard feels, when he as captain could have won it for Liverpool, and that slip. So in the grand scheme of things, since 2007, that's when we started really going down. And on that note, thank you for having me, and yeah, let's do it again. Take care. Good night. Bye.
All right, Glenn, we're staying
Another-
there 6 minutes.
Okay, another thing I would add about those seasons from 2008 to 2017-18 is people normally say, yes, when you beat all the small teams, it doesn't really matter if you lose to the big teams. one thing that was consistent all those years, we would beat all the small teams and end up crashing against the big teams. 8-2 against Man U, 6-3 against Man City, a couple of fives and fours at Anfield. I really hate games at Anfield.
We lost to
8-2 against
Tottenham.
Man U. Yeah,
Tottenham, I
so
think
that
they
is
put a
that really,
DVD out. We lost 6-1 to Tottenham in the League Cup, and they put a DVD out about that blend.
exactly, and that really cost us in that season of 2016. Just when we beat Leicester, I think we ended up. I don't know if it's Man U
Yeah.
ended up beating us again. I think they had Rashford make his debut that season. I think.
So let's bring us up to 2016. For me, there's a lot of Champions Leagues. We're consistent in the top four with Arsene Wenger. We're getting to the Champions League every year, but we get to the quarterfinal stages, and Barcelona or Bayern Munich put an end to us. AC Milan, one time we lose 4-0 at AC Milan. Have a huge game with Van Persie involved. We win 3-0, can't quite get that fourth goal. Just the highlights of those Champions League games. Arshavin scoring against Barcelona, all the high points.
Yeah, we had so many close shaves. You've mentioned one of them against Bayern Munich. I think AC Milan we came short by one goal.
Yep.
There's also a Bayern game they beat us at the Emirates, and we went to their place and won 2-0. I think Giroud Walcott scored, and we also came close by one goal. So many close shaves, but again, also lost against Bayern 10-2 later on. Then that really showed that we were dropping and dropping further.
And again, like somebody had said, if we'd have just invested a little bit more each season, gotten a player or paid a little bit more for a player here or there, could have made a difference. Both in Champions Leagues to get to semifinals rather than quarterfinals. And like we said in 2016, we only brought Peter Cech into the team. That was our only 10 million in that season. And we couldn't quite get past the very, very resolute Leicester City.
And that was the same season that we lost to Aston Villa in the first game.
Yes, probably.
When we started Cech and people were talking about Cech making a mistake in that first game, or I think it was the next season. But anyway, I think that was also the time where AFTV became famous when he lost to Aston Villa. That game we talked about, fans went mental from that game.
Those last 6 or 7 years, we had a lot of losses and opportunities to vent straight after games. Leicester City, that season in 2016, we played very well. We're top of the league by December, and then we start to wobble. We lose some games. Leicester have gone ahead of us. It gets to Valentine's Day where Danny Welbeck, as we mentioned, scores that goal. I have complete faith we're going to go on and beat Leicester City to the title at that point.
Definitely, and I don't think we'll ever have such a good chance. Man City were way off that season. Chelsea were way off. Man U,
Yes.
Liverpool were way off
Yeah.
the first season with the club. And it was a struggle between us, Leicester, and Tottenham. And even Tottenham at that time, that's when we started losing games, and Tottenham came above us, but we still ended up finishing behind Leicester. So really disappointing.
I think, Glenn, that may have been the biggest mistake in the last 10 years for Arsene Wenger. That if we'd have strengthened then and won the league at that point, because the following seasons we finished 5th, 6th, and 5th in the last 3 years. So we're mapping our demise pretty much after that failed Leicester challenge.
Exactly, and that was the last time also we got into the Champions League and we started becoming a Europa League club, definitely. As I've said, all those 5-6 teams came and completely overtook us. And let me just say, I think the worst years, those are our worst years as an Arsenal fan. 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. Again, seeing Guardiola coming to Man City. We were also talking about getting Guardiola that time as an Arsenal manager, but he ended up as a Man City manager. So
yeah,
that was the worst years.
Yeah, that's a great point that you're prefacing what's happening around the league. Manchester City are becoming stronger and stronger. We're starting to fade. But I do believe if we'd have strengthened that year, we could have beaten Leicester to the title. They were very, very resolute. You got to big up Leicester for what they did. They were unstoppable that year. They
and also
waited to trip up and never happened.
Exactly. And that season, Leicester lost only 2 games, and that was against Arsenal at home and Arsenal away.
Yeah, they lost exactly. Yeah, we beat them twice that season, but all of the other results was not good enough. Okay, 2017. We're getting close to the end here, Glenn, and thanks to everyone in the chats. I'm really loving this podcast. Thanks for your time again, Glenn. So we'll get out of here
No,
soon. We
no
end up
problem.
fifth place. We exit in the Champions League 2017 to Munich, 10-2 aggregates. I think it's 2-5, 5-1 defeats. We're clearly not at the races. We're in the Champions League.
Exactly. And that was the time I felt like feeling like he wasn't meant to be at Arsenal anymore. We completely fell apart when he got that red card at Emirates. And they beat us 5-1 at their place, yes, but there was this confidence of we can come at least give them a game and win 3-1 and to make it 5-2. But after that,
Yeah,
and it was actually 1 for the game until the 70th minute. Koscielny got a red card, and we conceded 4 goals in about 15 minutes. And that really showed me
yeah,
Wenger should have
yeah.
left that season, but he still ended up going another season.
Definitely that season he should have left because he would have left on a high, Glenn. We get to the FA Cup final. And for me, Mertesacker's swan song, for me, I'll always remember the part he played in bringing Rob Holding through that final.
Exactly. And that time, those two, I think, I was so confident in them building a partnership. They were so good together. And Mertesacker wasn't even supposed to play in that final. It was against Chelsea,
No,
right?
yeah.
He wasn't
The
even
Stoney
supposed to play in that
got
final, but he was
I
arguably
believe
the best
Stoney got
player.
sent off.
Exactly, and he was the best player in that game. The Chelsea were 10 men, and they actually still equalized in that game. And I was like, oh no, here we go again. But Ramsey again, another game to make him a legend. So that was a good season. That season he would have left definitely.
Yeah. Probably the last time we would be competitive, we beat Manchester City in the semi-final. Nacho Monreal scoring a great goal at the far post, and of course, Ozil turned up that day, and Alexis Sanchez scored the first goal. Everyone remembers Aaron Ramsey's part in scoring the winner against Chelsea. That was our last trophy, and now it's been 2 or 3 seasons, Glenn. Um,
Mhm.
2018. So we're dropped. We're now playing the Europa League. We get to the semi-finals under Arsene Wenger.
I remember Koscielny cost us that game. And also talking about people leaving, that was the time I thought Koscielny should have left because imagine if we would have won that game. I don't quite remember who Atletico played in the final, but we would have won that trophy
Okay.
to get us back into the
Yeah,
Champions League,
they played Marseille, I believe.
and everything would have looked rosier if the next manager coming would have got the Champions League. So that was
Yeah,
really disappointing
yeah.
at that time.
So a missed opportunity as well there. We lost also 3-0 to City in the what's called the League Cup, and then we finished sixth that season, Glenn. And now our last finish last year was fifth place. We all know it's in our most recent memory. We all know what happened last season under Unai Emery
Exactly, and that 3-0 loss against Man City. I remember 3 days later they also beat us 3-0 again in the league.
in the league.
Um,
Aubameyang missed
exactly.
the penalty.
Exactly, and we never even really competed in those games. It was really really sad. And talking about Emre, I think by the way Wenger's last season, that was the time that we started having that awful away record. We lost to every single away team. Newcastle away, Brighton away. Every single team got the better of us
Yeah,
that season, and
yeah,
I think it was the right time. I remember hearing Wenger was gonna leave, and I was like, "Phew, finally, he's going to leave." Um,
yeah,
for me at that time, I wanted either Allegri or Simeone to come, but Emery also wasn't a bad choice for me because I needed someone young, someone who can run in the touchline, someone who can motivate the players, not just someone who just sits in the dugout
yeah.
throughout.
Yeah,
Um,
the big thing about Arsene Wenger in those years, he started to sit in the dugout and almost shrink into his seat as things got worse and worse. and wasn't on the sideline at all. Gotta give some credit to Unai Emery. He was not the right choice for us, and maybe that's what needs to happen after you follow a legend, Len. It's very difficult to follow a legend.
It is definitely very difficult, but let's not get this wrong. He actually started very well. Yes, he lost to Man City and Chelsea, but
Yeah.
went on that incredible 22 game unbeaten run. Got a very good point away at Crystal Palace, trailing at halftime. We always used to trail those days, but ended up getting points. Yes, obviously, it really, what can I say? Obviously, we weren't a good team. It made us look like a good team. That's
Yeah.
22 game
Yeah,
unbeaten run. But
definitely agree. I agree with you on that. Some people will want to demean that 22, 23 game. I think it was 22 unbeaten. Um, Obviously, you're going to have, if you go 22 games unbeaten, you're going to have some luck here and there. You're going to win some games you probably should have drawn, and you're going to draw some games you should have lost. So definitely, but he started to lose the dressing room for me as well.
exactly, and the fans are winning 5-1 at Fulham. Fans were singing 5-0.
We have our
Fans are
Arsenal.
singing we are now back, and it looked like we did because But again, another thing that also happened those seasons, we still never beat the big teams. Again, the Chelsea's away, Man U away, we still never beat those teams. But
Yeah.
what?
So Don won 4-1 in Baku. Yeah, not a happy time, that Europa League final. Um, this is a question for Glenn. Would you have given Emery more time?
Oh, hi, Alex. By the way, no, not really. I wouldn't have given him more time. I actually think, as Donna said, after that 4-1 defeat, he should have left then, because it
Yeah.
looked like
I,
we were hearing stuff that the players were making fun of him while he was talking because of his language barrier and stuff. He had completely lost the dressing room. The ideas, the ideas is something that you really need the coach to have ideas. But at that time, he had completely lost the dressing room, and he should have left at that time, and we gotten a new manager for the start of this
and
season.
I'll answer that question as well. I was willing to give Emery time this season, but it got to such a point for me where Sheffield United away was a turning point for me with Unai Emery as well. And I'm happy. Obviously, no Arsenal fan will be able to tell you hand on heart that they wanted Arteta or knew they wanted Arteta. Most Arsenal fans had picked someone else. My pick was Rafa Benitez, but I'm very, very happy that we do have Arteta. I think he's going to be a young coach who can revolutionize things, and I just hope that the club will support him in the summertime, Glenn.
Exactly. And what really bothered me is after Emery got sacked, we didn't look like we had a replacement in mind. It looked like, oh wow, we've actually sacked Emery. I think that's the decision that should have been made at the end of last season. But getting Arteta so far, 8 games, 6 draws, 1 defeat, 1 win, a very good win against Man U, an unlucky defeat against Chelsea at home. So
Let's add in those 2 wins in the FA Cup as well. Make it look better. I think Glenn may have frozen there, but listen, we have come to the end of the
sorry for
podcast.
that.
Yeah,
Considering,
finish.
can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Finish your point. All right. We lost Glenn there. Hopefully he'll come back in. We're just going to do the outro right now, take a few questions, and then we will get out of here. But want to thank everybody in the chats. It's been very, very active today. Really appreciate it. What happens if Arteta starts to lose games and the players down tools to start to call for him to be sacked? Alex, I think we are close enough to the end of the season that even if that would happen, and Glenn is back in here. I would. I think we're close enough to the end of the season, Alex. That even if that would happen, that we could be forgiving Arteta for the rest of the season if that would start to happen, and then we would address it in the summertime. So I don't know, Glenn, if you want to address what Alex just said there. What happens if Arteta starts to lose games and the players down tools? Do you start to call for him to be sacked?
Sorry for that, by the way.
From
I don't really think so. I think it's still too early. Maybe it's talking about next season. I don't really think the players will down the tools. maybe a couple of players will leave, yes, but I don't really think these are the players that Arteta wants anyway. So I think there's really a very, very big change in this summer window. I'm actually, for me, I want us to get about 6, 7 players, but maybe we'll get four, 3 or 4, something like that. So I don't really think it matters if they down their tools because I don't think most of them will be here anyway next season.
Tony says, I still think we need the mentality of Simeone. Emery had to go. He lost the dressing room. Don Juan, thanks for joining us. I don't think the board saw the players go on mutiny and have the team drop so far. All right. And then we have to have a fire sale. So we have to sell some players still, Glenn. But I'm hopeful on the path. As bad as things have got, we have reviewed 20 years of Arsenal, Arsenal in the 21st century. Glenn, thanks for joining me. Really appreciate you. Thanks for Hopes and Richard too for joining us. There's been a lot over 20 years. I think we've highlighted the start of the podcast, Glenn. We were talking about Henri's and Bergkamp's and players we'll probably never see again. And it's probably a bit harsh to compare the early 2000s to where we are right now at 2020. But we've certainly degraded as a club on the field.
Of course, let's not forget those seasons. Most of the seasons Henry finished as top scorer in most of them. Really stamped his authority as a legend at Arsenal. I remember in 2017, I actually met Henry and I actually cried because he was one of those players that really made me support Arsenal. I wouldn't cry if I met Shamak, for example. I wouldn't cry. But
Did you actually meet Thierry Henry?
Yeah, he came to Kenya for, I remember it was actually a Newcastle game, the Ozil volley, and we actually watched with him like he was like a table away from me. So it was really nice at that time. And I actually cried meeting him because those were Arsenal legends. The Gilbertos, the Henrys, even Lawrence, Koloture, Campbell, all those players were legends. And it really showed our decline when we started getting players like Senderos, Kulachi, even Santos. The mentality of the team really, really dropped off. And I really hope we can build something like that in the coming years.
Yeah. Things that have led to our demise was maybe the move to the stadium, having to fund that. Definitely, there's no argument in Stan Kroenke being part of the club. He was is a contributing factor to it, and the fact that we have just not been competitive on the field when teams like Chelsea, Manchester United, and Manchester City have gone past us, and now more recently Liverpool.
As I've said, yeah, exactly. We were 20 years ahead of Liverpool, and all of a sudden they're 5 years ahead of us. Man City was a no-show for about 20 years. Overtook us. They now have 4 or 5 titles. We are still stuck on the same 3 titles that we had in 2004. So really, really a decline, terrible decline. And plus, those things are the only things we can hold on to. The unbeaten season, winning the title at Man U, at Tottenham, and we really need to get a trophy soon.
Yeah, really need to. I remember I'm a great believer in things coming around in cycles, and that maybe it's our turn pretty soon to come around. When I started supporting Arsenal in the late 80s, they had gone 18 years without winning the league. They won the league in 1989 at Liverpool. And more recently, we've now waited 16 years. We are waiting 16 years and still counting. So I really, really hope that that cycle can come around for us pretty soon. And people like Hopes can start having arguments with his best friend who's a Liverpool fan.
Yeah, exactly. It's 16 years, 20 years, unfortunately, unless we really have a drastic change from top to bottom, from Stan Kroenke to the players. Because let's be honest, yes, they've improved, but Mustafi and Shaka aren't going to win you a title.
No, we definitely need to fix up. You're right about that, Glenn. I hope and I hope that I can say in the next 3 or 4 years that we can rival and be rivals again with Liverpool and whoever's at the top of the table and start fighting for league titles.
Exactly. And also, Manu, yes, Manu ahead of us in the table, but I think we should be ahead of Manu by now. They haven't really recovered since the Ferguson going. I think we they were hit more harder with Ferguson going than us with Wenger going. So I really think we should be ahead of them by now. So yeah.
We'll take a couple of final questions, then we'll get out of here. Whose injuries cost us the most? Eduardo, Diaby, Rosicky, or Cazorla?
Definitely Eduardo, because that season he was really scoring some crucial goals. I remember he actually scored in a 3-0 away win at Man City those days.
Mhm.
What I would give to win 3-0 at
And
Man City right now.
yes, and
And
Tony, that question is probably across a few different teams. I would agree with what Glenn said. Eduardo in that season, 2008, but Cazorla as well. When we were playing very, very well with, I forget that holding player who we sold to Valencia, who they had a good partnership together. The
Coquelin.
Coquelin, the French midfielder. Yep. Uh,
And also Ramsey, let's not forget that.
Ramsey leaving.
No, Ramsey's injury, those injured players he was talking about.
Yeah.
Also, Ramsey got injured sometime.
Yeah. Our fortunes took a drastic turn in those 2 years, and this summer business, we better leave it there. This summer business will say a lot about our future, and that's a very good place to leave it at, Tony. Um, Once again, Glenn, thanks for joining me. Thanks to everybody in the chats. Really love the interaction. Arsonia Wonga, Lombard Camp, Tony, Alex. We all know Alex and love Alex. So, Glenn, shout out your YouTube channel again.
Thank you for having me, by the way. My YouTube channel is my name down there, Glenn Kitely, not as my hair says, Glenn Knightley. It's actually Kitely with Ki. I put out previews, player ratings, predictions, detailed previews of last 20, 30 meetings against the teams that we are playing. And I'm actually going to put a preview out in like a couple of hours after this. I have a lot of editing to do,
Oh,
but
you
thanks
could
for
be a
having me
night
again.
owl. Yeah. You're younger. You can
Yeah.
do that. Work through the night.
True. Exactly. Thanks for having me again, Ray.
Anytime, Glenn. You're becoming a fabric of the channel, so I really appreciate it. And I know you've been on with Cannon Fodder 2 TV, so big up to you. Give Glenn Kitely a look up on YouTube. And until next time, we probably have a podcast throughout the week, but our next game is Newcastle. We got to get back on the winning trail. So let's do that. Come on, you Arsenal. And up the Gooners. We're out of here.